the only state in the union that automatically, when you get your driver's license, registers you to vote, and it's not an opt-in, it's an opt-out. So when people go in and get their driver's license, they're automatically registered to vote. This means people who don't even know that they're registered to vote. And a lot of these people are, they're dumped into the voter rolls as an unaffiliated voter if they don't take an affiliation or if they're not aware that they're being registered to vote. So the DMV is registering people, and then they're being given a unaffiliated. And the data supports this because we're seeing a gigantic influx of unaffiliated voters in Colorado. Now, these are voters who didn't choose a party and most likely haven't participated in elections before. They're not really interested in voting. And yet, on occasion, ballots are cast on their behalf. And when we interview them, they find that they didn't vote. They don't believe they voted, and they don't understand how a ballot could have been cast. They certainly didn't send one from their house. And so the data indicates that somehow ballots are being cast by people who are not even willing to vote. They don't want to participate, yet they're registered to vote, and ballots are being cast. And I think the data that we have, the hard facts, the hard data that we have, proves that. Because we have 24,000 people who left the state of Colorado before the ballots were mailed out, and they still cast a vote. So you might be aware of the lawsuit by by Judicial Watch, who was just allowed to proceed, and that's exactly what they're finding, is that our voter rolls in Colorado are polluted with people who don't vote in awful cases.
Tom, thank you very much.
That's all I got.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Just to kind of piggyback that, from 2018 to 2020, there were actually 4 times the amount of registered voters as population growth, and those voters fell under the unaffiliated. That's crazy. 4 times the amount of unaffiliated voter registries than population growth from 2018 to 2020. That's unnatural in our estimation. So our next speaker, I'm just going to go ahead and get right to it. Colonel Sean Smith served in the U.S. Air Force for over 25 years. During his service, he was responsible for the testing and the testing oversight for some of the nation's most complex computer-based national security systems. It was his job to assess not only when people had hacked into the systems, but what the damage was. What did the outside players do to the system? He worked for the Pentagon the last few years of his service doing just this specialized work. So this is what he does. And like I said, he has already publicly testified for the legislative body in December. He also testified at the Independence Institute with Matt Crane present. And I don't remember if you were there or not. Maybe it was the El Paso County clerk. I can't think of his name right now. Sorry. Thank you. Chuck Berman was present. And then also a public hearing that we held in Denver that was open for anyone to come to attend to hear what they had found. That hearing is also available online, and I'll send it directly to you guys. I forgot how packed full of information it was. And everything is pertaining to Colorado elections, and we want to be specific about this. We're talking about our state. This is our home, and this is what we want to fix, is what's happening here. So Sean, are you on?
Okay,
let me just see here.
I
I
am
unmuted
on.
it. Oh, awesome. Thank you. Good morning, Sean. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning. I can't undo my video, but that's fine. It'll save you guys all that suffering. So if you want to see me, feel free to enable the video, and if you don't, that's fine too. But good morning, everyone. Sharona introduced me well. People have called me a cyber expert. I'm not a cyber expert, but I do know quite a bit about the cyber threat. So if you can hear me okay, I'll just kind of launch into a few comments, and then I'll be happy to take any questions that people have. Are we good to go? Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah, Sean, go ahead.
Okay, great. Okay, so my background, in addition to having operated and mastered a multitude of complex weapon systems in the military, is in the operational testing of computer-based weapon systems. There isn't much left in our Department of Defense inventory that isn't dependent or driven by computers, and that was okay until the world caught up with us in cyber capabilities and began using all of that computer dependence to target our critical national capabilities, whether they were military, national security, economic, informational, medical, etc. Which is how, though I'm not a cybersecurity expert and I don't write code anymore, I became intimately familiar with the threat posed by nation states and other capable national and transnational actors to our computer-based systems and everything that depends on them. So you don't just develop those systems and then use them against military, they use them against our banking, our utilities, economy, industry, healthcare system, transportation, and directly against military weapon systems. That threat is more severe than the general public and than you can possibly imagine. I helped assess the severity and impact of that threat to our national security capabilities, and the assessments I helped craft for that purpose were briefed to the highest levels of command. I'm talking about the Secretary of Defense and the Office of the President, and have driven changes in our defense and industrial policy and in weapons procurement, including the cancellation of weapon systems that were too compromised to be reliable in combat. My personal tendencies and my training and experience privilege. I had retired from that duty when I retired from the military. But then I read an article in November on the 3rd specifically about voter turnout in Colorado. Curiosity got the best of me. I started downloading data from the Secretary of State site and comparing it to population data and historical voting data, building my own analytic tools in Excel, just simple ones to look for trends and patterns. And then I started reading technical and procedural documentation about our election systems and about the procedures, companies, and people involved in developing, testing, and certifying the systems. And the more I read, the more concerned I became. And by the time my comments before the 15 December Legislative Audit Committee hearing, I had read almost all of the documentation on the Colorado Secretary of State site and testing reports and technical standards from the voting system testing labs, the Election Assistance Commission, and I was at that point truly alarmed. I am truly alarmed. Our voting system testing regimes and standards in the United States are a farce. And they're better than our testing and standards for the voter registration systems and the electronic poll books and risk limiting audit systems, because those systems don't even have standards. And the people in charge of them don't understand the threat or don't know what to do about it. It's difficult for me to imagine personally how an ecosystem of such stunningly insecure and vulnerable systems and the officials and rules that help cement them in place and deny public insight, oversight, and access could have been installed by accident. And I'm not alone in my concerns or conclusions. Most of the people that I now work with on election integrity didn't know one another at all prior to the 3rd of November. We converged strangers from our disparate professional backgrounds as scientists, data analysts, testing experts, legal experts, mathematicians, cybersecurity experts on a common conclusion. Something is very, very wrong, and we have to find out what's true. And that's why it's been so shocking to me personally to have so many public officials that we've spoken with and reached out to, with a few notable exceptions, be disinterested, dismissive, or actively hostile to citizens' efforts and demands for transparency, for full independent forensic audits of voter rolls, ballots, envelopes, and all voting and election-related machines. I get it when the media smears us. They have a job to do, and it has nothing to do with telling the truth. But public officials, and it hasn't just been people with massive conflicts of interest, like former Secretary of State Williams, who imposed dominion on Colorado and who now moonlights for Runback, or former Arapahoe County Clerk Crane, whose spouse worked for Dominion for over a decade and who actively promotes mobile voting, and who's employed by the Lafayette Group like Ryan Macias. He's the former Election Assistance Commission Director of Testing and Certification, who then, at the invitation of Secretary of State Hobbs, tried to sneak into the Maricopa audit, having been caught about it, lied about being a member of the press. And then Matt Crane invited Macias after that to come and speak to Colorado County clerks at their June summer conference. And Macias told our clerks how his organization wanted to discredit the Maricopa audit before any report was issued. I could go on about that, and there are a lot of public officials who are not, as they should be, public servants. I don't know who or what they serve, but they're dishonoring their oaths and their duty to our citizens by disregarding the public outcry and demand for transparency. It used to feel to me, talking to public officials about this, that someone was patting us on the head, telling us to mind our own business. And lately it's become the hand trying to hold us underwater until we stop struggling. I'm here to tell you this is our business, and we're not going to stop. Elections belong to citizens. Nobody has the authority to interfere with our right to complete transparency, insight, oversight. And every official has to decide if they want to be inside or outside this house of cards when it falls. I just saw a comment pop up from Mr. Murphy at CNN. He reached out to me, but when I asked him to put his questions in writing, he refused. That's the kind of tactic that the public has a right to be concerned about, because every time we answer questions, we get taken out of context. When you put it in writing, you have the opportunity to point back at it and say, this is what you actually asked, and this is what I actually said. If everybody remembers what happened with General Flynn in the FBI interview, you'll remember why that's important. But anyway, my hope is that that you all have simply been tragically misinformed, that you've been listening to people who've misled you, and that you aren't yet assimilated into that, somebody with Stockholm syndrome. My hope is that you'll listen now. My perspective, Clerk Peters listened. We told her that the manner in which the Secretary of State and Dominion voting systems upgrade the Dominion voting systems, what they call the trusted build, by installing a new image onto the existing voting system hard drives, can and likely does completely overwrite existing data on the drives, which would be necessary to reproduce and understand the operation of the voting system in elections. And I use those specific words for a reason, because when you look at the federal definition of records with respect to the election records that are required by public officials to be preserved for 22 months after an election involving specific federal candidates, they talk about the preservation of records necessary to reproduce or understand the function and operation of the government agency. You cannot simply copy the election system files or the product off the election system and then hope to reproduce what happened in the election. It's like the difference between looking at the end score in a football game and watching the game film. There's information on the machines. Yes.
Pause for just a moment. I just want to be clear about this point. There's been accusations that the clerks can just do a backup and it'll be just fine. And when they came in to do the trusted build, as long as they just did a quick little backup, everything was going to be there that they could put back on the machines. I need clarity on that, because I know that's a point of interest to the commissioners. They've been told that it's the clerk's responsibility to do a backup. And therefore, if information was lost during the quote unquote trusted build, it could be reapplied later. Can you speak to that, please?
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, I would say I've seen an email that was sent from the election, I guess, directorate staff under the Colorado Department of State. I think the name of the individual was Ms. Romero. Her email told the clerks, and I don't know if it was just Clerk Peters, but to save their election system projects. So in other words, they didn't have instructions that told them how to or told them to do a complete backup of the system. The problem with that is that you're just getting the end product. You're just getting this result file, and you're not seeing what was happening on the machine when that result file was being produced. I mean, we could go into a lot of detail about the problems with that, but you can't see what connected to the voting machine, what took place on the voting machine, what scripts were operating on the voting machine, who had access and was exercising that access, what the connections to the system were. You can't see any of that. I can think of 10 exploits off the top of my head that would obscure information and distort information that you could not verify, reproduce, or discertain just from the election system or election project results files. So either there's a lack of understanding there on the part of all the people responsible for providing tools and guidance to the clerks, or there's not. Both of those are very concerning. Does that help?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
So from the public data available, including the trusted build procedures, and also, just common standard knowledge in the industry, we know that the voting system hard drives are typically repartitioned during the trusted build process. So not only is that overwritten data per the federal definition of records, part of the totality of physical and digital information which election officials are obligated by law to preserve, by US law, not Colorado state law, for 22 months. But the erasure or destruction of that information on the voting systems may itself be a crime, given the very real likelihood that our voting systems were illegally certified because the voting system testing lab's accreditation was expired at the time that they tested, that the Secretary of State is depending upon for her certification of these systems. And so the voting system configuration itself might be evidence in a criminal investigation and should have been a long time ago, from my perspective. I'm not an attorney, but I can read. So, we also told Clerk Peters, what I'll now tell you, our voting system hardware was manufactured overseas with no chain of custody that would assure us it was not corrupted or compromised. And it's configured in an extraordinarily suspect manner. And I'll give you an example. Our election system, election management system for the Dominion system, it's the EMS. It's like the hub or the heart of the voting system. It's not only loaded with Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio, which allows direct access to manipulate the SQL databases on the machines where voting data is stored, but some of the components in our voting systems built to, and this is important, built to the specifications of the vendor. So I've said this before, these systems have been called COTS, commercial off the shelf. They are not COTS, they are built to order. COTS would be you walking into Walmart or Best Buy and buying something off the shelf that has not been tailored for you, that nobody knows you're going to buy. But when you order a system and you specify the configuration, that is not COTS, that is bespoke, it's custom. The configuration was determined, specified by Dominion voting systems. And our voting systems have been configured at the time they were ordered by the vendor that we have purchased them from, with devices in them and configurations that we should be questioning, including wireless modems. And I'll give you a case in point in Mesa County. So if you look at the Secretary of State's list of certified equipment by county, it's the Colorado, I think it's Equipment Inventory 2020. And that'll tell you what was used during the November 2020 election. You'll see a Dell Optiplex 9030 all-in-one, the AIO. The serial number is H4B4T52. It's used as a Dominion Voting Systems Democracy Suite Image Cast Central. That's the scanning and tabulation system in Mesa County. You can verify that equipment and serial number by just looking it up yourself on the website. Was there a question?
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. And so if you look that serial number up, again, H4B4T52, and I invite the media who are on this call to look that up for themselves, because this is all available to you. You look that up on Dell's support site, you'll see that the system was ordered by Dominion with an Intel 7260 AC Wi-Fi Bluetooth modem. Does that, I'm sorry, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, just making sure you said a Wi-Fi Bluetooth modem. It was ordered that way.
That's right.
For Colorado voting machines.
That's right. Yeah, it was ordered with that modem in it. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you about the system? I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot of interference.
We can hear you just fine. Keep going.
Okay, so I'm sorry, give me just a moment. Okay, so if you have a wireless modem built into your system, when you look in the Secretary of State's rules under, I think it's 8 CCR Code of Colorado Regulations 1505-1, it states that if any component of the voting system is equipped with Wi-Fi capability or a wireless device, the county must ensure that the wireless capability or device is disabled before use in an election. And the county cannot connect any component of the voting system to another device by modem, and the county may not connect or allow a connection of any voting system component to the internet. That seems really important. It must be, because it's written into the Colorado Code of Regulations. But maybe the Secretary of State or the Deputy Secretary of State or the former Secretary of State who imposed these systems on Colorado counties and their voters, or the executive director of the Colorado County Clerks Association, or somebody could answer, if the voting systems aren't supposed to be connected to the internet or to any system or equipment outside the certified voting system by modem, much less wireless modem, then why would the voting system vendor order these systems with wireless modems for Colorado? And how did they get certified for use? How did everybody in this chain create a system with a wireless modem in it, put it in the hands of the clerks, charge the clerks to make sure the voting system wireless modem is off, that they're not even told about, by the way, and then blame the clerk for potentially not having the wireless modem off? And if you read in the procedures, and you can download these yourself from the Secretary of State site, you can get all of Dominion's procedures for the clerks and for the state off Sec State site for Dominion Voting System 5.11 CO or 5.13. See if you can find in those procedures any guidance to clerks telling them either how to back up their records or how to even verify that that modem is off in the systems, or heck, even telling them that there's a modem in their systems. I've read responses from clerks in our state who have told their citizens there are no modems or connections inside the system. That's what they've been told. This isn't election expertise. This isn't cyber expertise. This is third grade reading. Some people have some answering to do for why these modems are even in the systems. And I will tell you, there is no way for our counties to ensure that those modems are off. They don't have the access or authorization on the machines. They don't have the expertise. They don't have the resources. Even if you, as a logged in Windows user, even as the administrator on that system, even if you looked at the configuration to be woken up, wireless signal, it can be configured to receive executable commands by a wireless signal that the clerks and the counties would have no insight into. The second problem with it, and this is a bigger problem, is how does a system like that, with no chain of custody, built overseas with wireless modems in it, how does that even get into the hands of our counties as a voting system? Everything is wrong about that. The Election Assistance Commission, the voting system testing labs, the certifying officials, everything is wrong about that. If that can make it through that process, you cannot trust them to do anything because those are the basics. Those are the basics of the system. I've heard the same thing Sharona has said over and over again from public officials, that this is the gold standard. They have USB ports in the back of the EMS servers and in the front of them. In fact, as many as 7 or 8 open USB ports. If we had a red team going into a military unit to do testing to see if they were secure and they had an open USB port, that was the end of the exercise. Because an open USB port or even an HDMI port, like you'll find on the ImageCast Central all-in-one machines, anything that allows them to get to that machine to a port is such a massive vulnerability that we know over and over again that's going to be, they're going to take full control of that system. We don't even have to test that anymore because it's known so well. So let me just pause for a minute and see if anybody has any specific questions, and I can answer more detailed questions about, yeah, Paul Murphy's still texting me. I'm speaking, Paul. I asked you before to send your questions in writing. Why don't you do that?
Sean,
Okay.
Let's just check in real quick. Does anybody have any, the commissioners or attorney, do you have any questions?
I do have a couple questions. Colonel Smith, my name's Todd Starr. I'm the Mesa County Attorney.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate your time this morning. At one point early on in your remarks, you indicated something to the effect of, we told her, Clerk Peters, the manner in which the Dominion upgrades can and likely did override. You remember that testimony, for lack of a better word?
Sure. Yeah, I think I said overwrite, but I may have not pronounced it very well. I apologize.
That's fine. And
Yep.
When you told that to Clerk Peters, who's the we that told that to Clerk Peters?
Well, I was kind of speaking royal we. So, I'm a member of U.S. Election Integrity Plan. These are the people that I didn't know before and started meeting at the December 15th Audit Committee hearing. So when I said we, I was probably speaking, for myself in that I'm in the habit of saying we when I'm saying I'm speaking for USCIP, but it was probably me who told Clerk Peters that.
And do you remember when you might have told her that?
Sean, I can speak for this. This isn't exactly what we're here for. We're here to talk about the machines and vulnerabilities. We host a public meeting every other Thursday evening that we invited Clerk Peters to, where the same information you're receiving now has been given over and over and over. I know Matt Crane was able to watch one of those and be a part of, or I don't know if he was a part of it, but he watched it later. They're public record. They're available for anybody. We have never hidden any of this information or tried to conceal it. We've tried to give this information to as many clerks as possible. So it could have been any one of those meetings that Tina decided to join on and listen because we asked her to hear our case. Same with Janet and Cody, who were also sent recorded Zooms of this information.
I'm sorry, I just missed your answer. You went pretty quickly. You host those meetings weekly?
Every other week at this point.
And when did they start?
Well, voter integrity started a long time ago, probably 5.5 months ago.
So you've been hosting those meetings since about March, April?
Probably so.
And has Tina participated in those from the start?
No, we invited her on to hear this information the same way we're bringing it to you guys now.
And when you say we invited her on, who's the we that would have invited her?
I guess I would say the same as Sean. Us people, we get together. You're not going to find this dark underbelly, conspiracy thing. We've kept everything transparent, everything in the light. We've invited elected officials all along, and Matt Crane, anyone who wanted to be on to hear these things, they absolutely have access always. This is not a conspiracy. It's not a closed veiled club. It's been open access and public knowledge for months.
And are those still available somewhere so I could
Well, you can go to my YouTube channel.
Your YouTube channel.
Okay, Sean, go ahead. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Did you have another?
I had a couple more questions. You talked about if the voting systems aren't supposed to be connected, then built with a wireless modem ordered and imposed. Do you have any specific evidence that those modems were actually engaged at any time, or just the fact that they exist within the machine?
Oh, he's muted.
You're
Brenda,
muted,
is there any way to? Sean, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. It said the host wasn't allowing us to meet. I think somebody else called. So I'm gonna just, I apologize for doing this, but just really briefly, Mr. Murphy keeps texting me questions in this. Somebody called me, I'm not sure if it was him. Mr. Murphy, you have another contact information for me. First of all, please use it. I asked you for questions in writing. Second, you said this is a chance to answer honestly. I always answer honestly. I'd rather slit my own wrist than tell a lie. Mr. Murphy, you have the other contact. Please use it and stop texting me in this forum so I can answer the commissioners and Mr. Starr. Mr. Starr, you asked me if I have any specific evidence that those modems were on during at any time. Is that what you, is it, did I get that right?
That's correct.
Okay, great. So I have not forensically examined any of the voting systems in the state of Colorado. They should be forensically examined. That's how you would determine it. So by the same token, I don't have evidence that they were on, and nobody else has evidence that they were off. And the way you would find evidence or to find the answer to whether they were on or off is to actually forensically examine them. Part of the problem that I'm trying to tell you about is that if you only do a backup of the election system files or the election system projects, you will not have the information that you need to determine whether or not those modems were on, or if any outside systems connected, or if any unauthorized operation or script or execution took place on those systems. That's why they must be forensically examined by an independent auditor, cyber professionals. There is no such thing as an election systems auditor. There's no federal certification. There's no accredited, election systems auditor. You need cybersecurity professionals who understand the systems, the software, and the threats. That's how you answer that question. And until that happens, we won't know. But the very fact that those were present, somebody telling me that those modems were off, and Mr. Crane has said that in a Republican Study Committee hearing, answering me when I said these systems have wireless modems in them, which many clerks and public officials have been told they do not. and we had to verify it for ourselves using the equipment configuration. So saying that they have wireless modems but they're off is like saying you have a flamethrower in the baby carriage but it's off. The problem is the flamethrower in the baby carriage, and anybody who doesn't understand why you wouldn't want it to have one in it. There's a serious lack of judgment at a bare minimum, and it should never have gone through certification. Never, with a wireless modem in it.
I'd like to try and understand, or make sure that I understand, what it is that you've been looking at. You've talked about equipment configuration. You've talked about a forensic image. Have you seen an image of some sort of forensic image of the machine?
Did I say anything about a forensic image on this call, or are you referring to some other comment?
I'm sorry, I thought I heard you say forensic image about 5 minutes ago.
Forensic audit.
Okay.
That's right.
Have you seen a forensic image of the machine?
I saw that somebody had posted it online, and I saw that a lot of different cyber professionals are now going through whatever was posted online. I haven't gone through that. That's not what I do. I'm not, I've written code, but it's been quite a while. I know enough to know when I'm looking at something that's a lot more complex than it ought to be. But I haven't personally gone through a forensic image.
And the forensic image you've seen, you saw online somewhere?
Right. Yeah. So the same one that the Secretary of State's been talking about, that one. So I saw that it was posted online, but I haven't gone through that image or analyzed. That's not what I do. What I did, as I explained earlier, is I looked up based on the serial number in the Secretary of State's own certification letter, which you could do. Actually, anybody in the room could do, and I would welcome you to do it. I would welcome Mr. Williams and Mr. Crane to go do that, or everybody in the public, actually, because we should know what's in our voting systems. You can take those serial numbers and go to Dell's support site, put the serial number in, and look at the configuration with which the system was ordered. You can pull up, you can look at the specifics, you can look at like a spreadsheet of it and export that spreadsheet. And I think I gave a copy of that to Sharona so she could give to you, so you could look up and see that part number for the wireless modem and the cable antenna is included there, and that the part number for the chain of custody documents was specifically not ordered with the system.
And when you've been referring to the equipment configuration, is that how you've is that what you're referring to, or how you came to those configurations by simply getting the serial numbers and looking them up that way?
Right. Yeah. That's, unless Dell is lying, that's how the systems were ordered.
And the information on this spreadsheet that you gave Sharona, that she's given to us, for instance, it has like county, Larimer, and then has a serial number and the model and the vendor. That all comes from the Secretary of State? That's
correct. Yeah. If what you're talking about is that, I think it says Colorado Equipment Inventory 2020 or County Equipment Inventory, something like that.
All right. I'll let you go on with your presentation. Thank you, sir.
I didn't have any more to present. I mean, I can speak to the specifics, and I'm glad to answer questions. But I beg you to ask more questions and to investigate what should be investigated here, right? How we got systems that are configured this way, what the actual content of them is. I personally, and I'm very aware of the threat posed against our systems, including everything down to small businesses. If our voting systems and election systems are not a target for nation states and transnational actors, I don't know what is. It's the fate of the world and trillions of dollars. So the idea that these systems wouldn't be targeted by that very capable threat is ridiculous. And the idea that these systems would be secure against that very capable threat is ridiculous. You would never use a system with Windows 10 on it and open USB ports and wireless modems for a critical function, knowing that this threat could target them. And yet that's exactly what they've done. And all of these officials and agencies responsible for the testing and the certification and accreditation, they have all allowed this to happen. Their judgment cannot be trusted. They don't know what they're doing. That's the best case. I'm afraid they may know what they're doing, and that alarms me even more.
So
Can I ask one more question?
Go
Colonel,
ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Colonel Smith, I have one more question for you, and I apologize.
Yes, sir.
If I heard you correctly, you've indicated that you don't have any evidence about our machines, the Mesa County machines, specifically being connected to the internet. A, did I hear that correctly? And B, do you have, or does anybody part of this presentation have any information about our machines, the Mesa County machines, being connected to the internet?
First of all, let me start with, it's not just the internet. So it's connection to anything by law. I mean, if you look under the Code of Colorado regulations, it's connection by wireless modem to anything outside the voting system. So people keep saying internet, and I hope it's just a semantic error and not a deliberate statement. But if you, for example, connected one of these voting systems to any other piece of equipment outside their voting network, that would be a tremendous vulnerability, right?
So do you have
connect them.
county's equipment? Do you have that evidence for Mesa County's equipment?
I'm sorry, one more time?
Do you have the evidence for Mesa County's equipment that it was connected to anything else?
Are you asking me if I have the evidence?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm getting to that. So could I just see, and I apologize for doing it this way, but a show of hands, does anybody in the room have a forensic examination report from these systems?
I would like you to answer my question.
I am, miss. I'm trying to tell
Yes.
you. I'm sorry, I'm not sure who's asking the question.
It's Janet Rowland.
Hi, Miss Rowland. Or I don't know if you prefer commissioner, but I mean no disrespect by calling you miss, but at any rate, anybody who tells you that the systems have not been connected and is not basing that on a forensic audit by an independent examiner doesn't know what they're talking about. So you're asking me if I have the proof, but I've already told you I haven't done a forensic examination on the system. I wouldn't be the one to do that. In order to answer that, I'm sorry, go ahead, ma'am.
Sean,
You mentioned, Sharona, that you have these images I've never seen before and after that show our elections were compromised and that logs were removed.
Right.
I thought we'd be looking at these images today. Do you have them?
So as Mr. Strew knows, there is an investigation taking place right now, and there are people in this district right now that believe that to have these images is criminal. And so those images are not going to be provided here today. And that's why our experts are not here in person, because they believe it's criminal. And so therefore, we're not going to subject people to being arrested here in Mesa County over the theory that we can't have access to our own election material. Here's what I will tell you so far. And Sean, if you want to add anything to this, this is what we know happened so far from the before to after images, because that's what you want to know. What can we release to the public right now? This has already been put out to the public and it has been affirmed. Sean, am I good to go through these 5 things?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, so the first thing that we know happened for sure is at least a, hang on just a second, I want to say the right word, just one sec. At least a partial, if not complete replacement of server content. So the QR software code removal and trusted build that was done by the Secretary of State and Dominion employees, when they came in, we did a forensic, a forensic image was done showing everything that would be in that system. You cannot get that, just to be very clear, with doing a basic backup. And Sean's tried to express that. I hope it's not been too technical. You cannot do that with a basic backup like was requested in that brief email to the clerk's office. A forensic image would capture everything that's on the system, including communications, and we'll get there because, Janet, that's the question you're asking. So a complete replacement of server content was done, and that shows in the after image. That's not a software update by the way, PS. Partition sizes were reduced, indicating a loss of a lot of data. Sean, will you explain what the partitions are?
Yeah, so in this case, what we're talking about is logical partitions. So if you have like a magnetic or removable storage media or non-removable, like a hard drive in your computer, our partition is like a set of file locations or a place that, like, imagine it like a closet. And so you have a guide to what's in the closet is stored on there. Well, you can change the configuration of those logical partitions on the drive. And if you do that, you can overwrite existing data on the drive. So in other words, you haven't protected the continued retention of that data. And this is what I'm getting at, that downloading or backing up election project files does not back up the digital records that you would need to understand what happened on the system.
Or to even do,
that's right.
Sorry, or to even do a future forensic audit. This is a problem because we're not allowed to delete those files by the laws in the state of Colorado for 25 months. Okay, so moving on to just another part, they did repartition the hard drive. We know that for sure as well. They rebuilt it. Is that a good way to say that? When you repartition the hard drive?
Yeah, is what a good way to say it, that it rebuilds it?
Yeah.
It's more like, it's like the hard drive is a whiteboard, and everything that is written on it until it gets erased. And if you don't protect it and just start writing over the same spots, you can obscure and destroy whatever was written on it before. So adding logical partitions that retain the old logical partition would keep the information that you had before. But if you don't retain the old logical partition, then you can either accidentally or deliberately overwrite prior data.
Which is the repartitioning of the hard drive. So it makes the, you said it good. Builds before and after, this is important.